If you dig, you will find interesting information. That if you dig, you will know that many people don't dig. They're not digging into history. They're not digging into philosophy. They're not digging into the things that make societies run. And many of these same people claim that they're activists, social justice warriors. This is very problematic because we're heading into the fourth turning. And if you actually study what I'm talking about when it comes to the cyclical nature of history in our society, when it comes to the turnings, it hits every 80 years almost, with the precision of a Rolex watch. Just about every 80 years, society kind of resets itself. And it makes it kind of confusing when you're looking through history and trying to figure out what's happened. The end of the last third turning before this, Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, and we went through the wars, and we started having a little bit of art. Now, what happened as soon as World War II ended was we had the boomers. The boomers were born, and we began the first turning. The boomers are the ones who, for the most part, they create a society where they are the philosophers and the thinkers, and they project these ideas. And what happens after that, after World War II, we come across the civil rights movement, and this is when we go through an awakening. So as we go through this awakening, we see a lot of changes in culture that are positive, and people are benefiting a lot from society. And this happened to coincide with the death of JFK because, everything was hunky-dory before that. After the World War II had ended and society was well on its way, of course, there are outliers such as homosexuals and blacks at the time, but there are always outliers when it comes to these philosophies of the turnings. So after the assassination of JFK, we began the second turning. And in the second turning, we do see a lot of people that are pushing our society, and these people that are born at this time are the people who are the nomads. They're the movers. They take the philosophy and they move it into position and begin taking action upon it. And then that leads us to the third turning, which was the election of Ronald Reagan, basically. And the people in this generation face crisis and the unraveling of society. And as we could see, that pretty much lines up. All right. Society did begin unraveling after that point as the boomer generation took advantage of credit and eventually led to the point where everybody has to work, every family has to work 2 jobs to make it. and things started unraveling and falling apart. And that brings us to the fourth turning, the millennials, the post 9/11, and these people are supposed to be the fighters, and I'm terrified because those are my kids. They're supposed to be, as it comes out of the end, the people who fight to make the world better for the artists. And the artists started all over again. As a first turning happens and bad shit starts to begin, the artists are the ones who are expressing themselves. And if you go back historically, 80 years before, that was the end of World War II. 80 years before that was about the Civil War. 80 years before that was around 1770, 1780. That was the American Revolution, the beginning of our country. And if you just keep going down these lines, you'll see how this pattern constantly repeats itself, and it's so cyclical in nature. And when I try to explain it to people, they say, oh, no, shit is fucked up and society's better than it was back then. But society's not better than it was back then. Society just changes. We had the women's suffrage movement, and at what time were women fighting more for the end result to be having more respect when they came out of it, as to where now they're demonizing even being a woman, as far as I have seen on social media. And I have left social media, except for YouTube, because you don't have an effect on me when I'm on YouTube, unless I'm watching your video. I mean, you put up a post and people affect you. But what really affected me was the toxicity of our society and the stupidity of so many people. And when people who are absolutely broken do need help, social media serves no purpose. I mean, people could say kind words, but sometimes you need to sit across from someone at a table, shake their hand, give them a hug. Human contact can't be lost. And at this point, if you're lonely and you're on social media and that's what your outreach is, it's going to fail you eventually. Do what you can. I do what I can. And I feel that sometimes if it's the I that causes you to sin, you must pluck it out. This worked very well with Facebook, and it's working with Twitter. I gotta say that the things that I'm focusing on now are different, and they're more important, and they're more local, because I want to be very vocal about this. If you don't do something on a local level, then you are chicken shit. If you don't show your presence at a local level to fight for the things that you believe in, I'm not talking about running for office. I'm talking about just showing your fucking face and telling people, hey, I have a problem with this and I'm in public talking about it. Because if you don't do that, then that presence doesn't exist to people, and they don't believe when they see it happening in France and Australia. So I'm saying people need to stop focusing so much on the international perspective and pull back instead of nationalism. Start moving toward localism, because things are really failing. And once we move to localism, I think that it will draw people from other areas towards you if you're actually doing something, as opposed to these people who've never done anything but write about things that they hardly know anything about. I just turned 43, and I gotta say, once you get past 40 and you start looking at the things that the people that are in the early 30s are saying, no matter how smart they are, no matter how many accolades they have, no matter how high their IQ is, they have a lot to learn. They're not dumb, but they're ignorant. And ignorance isn't a bad thing. It could be, especially if you don't work to decrease that. We are really falling apart. And I want you all to be aware of the turnings, the cycles, so you can know what's going to come next. Because even Orson Welles could have put a better year on 1984 if he had just considered the cyclical nature of our society. He probably would have hit it right on the head for the fourth turning to end around 2028, possibly 2030. Our kids are going to be the fighters, and maybe your kids are just going to be the artists that come out at the other end. Either way, you should support me as a parent, as one of these people who's going to be a future leader. And I can see one of my kids being a future leader. I don't say this with arrogance or anything. I say it because it's a fucking headache having a kid that is always pushing up against the grain as hard as you are. Well, when you have kids, I mean, you basically get a little mini you. And that may not be the nicest thing in the world. I'm just saying. But it may be what the world needs. Anyway, I love y'all. I hope I can upload this video. We'll see. Keep thinking. Stay vigilant. Look out for your people on a local level. Peace.